No one bought into Johnson's ploy here. It was a silly ploy. We said so at the time. I mean, I guess this was the option that he had. Republicans can't prevent Democrats from putting these amendments forward in committee, and now the whole thing is frozen, and they can't do anything on the floor this week besides non-controversial suspension bills, which, leaves the question, why the hell are they even here this week?
Good morning, I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchbowl News. It's Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025. Let's get into the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number one, the government funding process is a mess. Number two, Epstein freezes the House once again. And number three, top places to watch for Republican redistricting. All right, Jake, let's get into it. We are talking government funding, 70 days away, but it is a mess. And today is, and this week, frankly, is really emblematic of the challenges that congressional leaders have, given the fact that they focused on one big, beautiful bill for so long, reconciliation. They are very far behind. The House passing only two appropriations bills so far, and the Senate stuck on Milcon VA as a test vote. I mean, this doesn't bode well for actually passing all of the appropriations bills in the time that they have left.
Yeah, if you look, Anna, and by the way, no one is faulting them for focusing on reconciliation, which they, you want to capitalize on the political momentum that you have at the beginning of the Congress. That's just the fact of it. But by now, typically, the House will have passed a lot more appropriations bills, and they're going into the August recess having passed two. That's not great. It just highlights the fact that they are behind the eight ball when it comes to government funding. And we did a round yesterday and talked to a bunch of people. And I talked to Johnson. I talked to a lot of people about this situation. And Johnson said everyone is in a good and favorable mood about it. And I'll take that. Which, you know what, Anna?
He might be the most optimistic guy, when it comes to leading that we have seen.
God bless him, you know what I mean? In some ways, you got to be optimistic in this job. But to be honest with you, this week is also emblematic of just how, they're kind of nowhere, right? Because they're on the floor, and we'll get to this in a second because they can't bring anything serious to the floor, but they are here before the August recess, aiming to pass zero appropriations bills in the run up to the August recess. The August recess begins theoretically on Thursday, the day after tomorrow, for the House, and the House is not passing any spending bills this week. So they're going to come back in September. I don't remember what date in September they're coming back, but they are coming back in September, and they're going to have a really Herculean task ahead of them. And the Senate is also moving forward on some spending angles this week. But, Anna, it is really, really ugly out there when it comes to the spending process.
It's a smart point in the top this morning. When you think about kind of historically, appropriators in particular, the deans of the chambers, kind of was one of the biggest, kind of coups to get onto the appropriations, have that kind of spending power. They worked in a bipartisan fashion, and clearly the shine is off the committee in a lot of ways, given the fact that, good or bad, the strategic decision was made that to do reconciliation and to not focus on this stuff, and the spending packages and the different bills aren't going to be done by government funding. I mean, in almost no way for that to be done.
Yes. And I'll just add this to what you said there. Andy Harris, the chair of the Freedom Caucus, the Maryland Republican, who is a cardinal, is an appropriations subcommittee chair, said he will be fine with a full year CR as long as not as long, but he wants earmarks in a full year CR, which is very unusual. He said, I have no problem with the year-long CR. Keep spending at current levels. It doesn't increase spending. Of course, those are the spending levels that Joe Biden put into place before he left the presidency. But, one of the big dynamics we'll see, I mean, there's a lot of interesting wrinkles that we'll see come to the fore in September, but one of them is number one, are they okay with a full year CR? And if they are, will Democrats go along with that?
Right. Big question there.
Right. We don't know the answer to either of those things, but typically conservatives would not be for a full year CR, because, especially in a situation like this, because it does, in this instance, keep the Biden spending levels in place. I mean, I think what they'll say is, well, we did a rescissions package. We took care of a lot of things in the reconciliation bill. Those both could be true, but still, it would be quite unusual to do a full year CR at this point. At this stage of the game for Republicans, you would assume Donald Trump would want to put his stamp on spending. Maybe not. Maybe they just don't want to shut down the government, so they'll try to really bait Democrats into shutting down the government by doing a full year CR. But a full year CR would take you through just before the election, the midterm election of 2026, and maybe Republicans try to punt it past the election. We'll see how that goes.
All right, Jake, let's get into it. The number 2 story of the morning for us is a look at how House rules ground to a total stop last night over Democrats' efforts to continue to embarrass or prod Republicans to have to do amendment votes in the House Rules Committee. This kind of at a meta level has been exacerbated by how Speaker Mike Johnson has handled this. It's an interesting dynamic that it's hard to know exactly how they are going to get themselves out of.
This is one of the most unbelievable episodes I have seen, and it all centers on Speaker Mike Johnson. Because last week, just to review, the Democrats put an amendment in the Rules Committee, which, by the way, not unusual. The minority oftentimes puts up amendments to try to trip up the majority in the Rules Committee. Tale as old as time. And Ralph Norman, conservative, this was a Jeffrey Epstein amendment, released the Jeffrey Epstein documents. It was something of that nature. He voted for it. That was a big problem for other members of the committee, other Republicans on the committee who got flack for voting against it. So the optics are you're voting against an amendment that would release the Epstein files, theoretically. So last week, Republicans on the Rules Committee went to Johnson. We covered this ad nauseum and said, we need to figure out a way to not do this. So Johnson put in a resolution, non-binding resolution through the Rules Committee that said the government needs to release the Epstein documents. A, it was non-binding. B, Johnson never put it on the floor. He said he had no plans to put it on the floor.
I mean, that's the issue, though, isn't it? Isn't it that he is not going to put it on the floor? I mean, he could have handled it, but they don't want to have this vote.
It's a bad vote because not for any other reason besides Donald Trump would get mad. And he doesn't want to see a bunch of Republicans voting to release the Epstein files. So yesterday, the Rules Committee, Democrats in the Rules Committee were going to do it again. They were going to put an amendment forward again in the House. And the Republicans basically said, we're not voting. We don't want to vote against it. Ralph Norman said we don't want to vote against it. So the Rules Committee, which is the gateway for Mike Johnson to put any legislation on the floor, is completely frozen because no one bought into Johnson's ploy here. And it was a silly ploy. We said so at the time. I mean, I guess this was the option that he had. Republicans can't prevent Democrats from putting these amendments forward in committee. And now the whole thing is frozen. And they can't do anything on the floor this week besides non-controversial suspension bills, which leaves the question, why the hell are they even here this week? Because they can't do anything. Johnson said he's not going to send them home early. So kind of a waste of a week.
We'll have to see. I think the other interesting thing here that the item gets into is the fact that there is a discharge petition effort by Thomas Massie, often at odds with Republican leadership and Donald Trump and Ro Khanna, the Democrat, that not ripened yet, but you already have started to see a few. I think there's 10 or so Republicans who have signed on to this. So this could be coming to the House floor, whether Johnson likes it or not.
It will. I would say it will come to the House floor unless Johnson preempts it in some way. And I'm not sure he's going to be able to at this point, because, again, the problem is Republicans have been saying for years that they want the Epstein files released. Now, Trump has said he effectively doesn't want the Epstein files released. And Republicans have revved up their base so much that they can't back away from this thing. So, I don't know what the way out is. The discharge petition is not officially open for signatures yet. It will become open in September when Congress comes back from recess, and Republicans hope that this has cooled down by then. I'm not entirely sure that it will or it won't. I don't know. And people drop off this thing or don't sign it, or, Trump has released a bunch of documents, something like that. But otherwise, they're going to have the same problem when they return in September.
All right, let's run to the number 3 story of the morning, redistricting wars, a story I did not have on my bingo card for the midterm elections, but is becoming quickly the story of the 2026 election. We've been talking about Texas, we've been talking about California, and now there are several other states that we are watching closely to see if Republicans start to take that same strategy that they're employing in Texas and use it across the country in states that might be easier because of state rules to pick up a couple more seats as they are concerned about how they're going to be able to keep the majority.
Yeah, so we know they're going to try in Texas, Republicans, but Donald Trump has said that there's 4 more states that they might try in. So we did a lot of reporting and figured out what those 4 states might be. Missouri is one. This is the easiest one, and the administration is aware and somewhat supportive that they look at this at Missouri, and they could crack the Kansas City-based seat of Emanuel Cleaver, longtime House Democrat from Kansas City. Florida, another one. I don't know how they could squeeze more seats out of Florida.
20 of the 28 districts are Republican held. I mean, there's not a lot more juice on that one.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there are experts in this, and they think that they could get Kathy Castor in Tampa, Darren Soto in Orlando, DWS, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Jared Moskowitz, and Lois Frankel in the kind of Boca, South Florida area. New Hampshire's another one. They're looking at a lot of states with Republican governors, obviously. Kansas does not have a Republican governor, but Republicans have the ability to override a veto, and the state legislature isn't in session again until 2026, which makes it a little bit more complicated. Kentucky is another one. Andy Beshear could be overridden by the Republican majorities in the state house. Indiana, I don't know that Mike Braun, former Senate Republican, has the desire to do this. And Nebraska, they could shore up retiring Congressman Don Bacon. Basically, what you do in these situations is you take Republican voters from another district, you put them in some way in a marginal seat to shore up Republicans or to create a new Republican seat or a competitive seat, and then the election has changed. So it's very interesting.
We will be covering it in the coming days and weeks. It will be interesting to see if the desire by Donald Trump impacts some of these states and the kind of state legislatures as well as governors to make moves. With that, we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much for listening, for watching on YouTube. We appreciate it. You can subscribe at Punchbowl News. As always, you can go deeper on all things Punchbowl News at punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.